Hey,
Hey,
girl. How are you?
I'm good.
What is this? What is this? Is Sunday? Yeah,
hmm
right. It's Sunday.
Yeah, I had to think.
Happy Sunday.
Yes.
So we're gonna do a series, and it's going to be us going through a FOIA that I don't think this has been seen on social media, and it couldn't have been because the stuff in this FOIA is damning.
Is it is
Like it's
wild. And it just proves so much of her story being a lie. It's crazy. Thank you, Tracy.
it's insanity. On a
Yes.
I don't even know.
I'm not gonna lie. When I was reading it, I was like, I know that I knew what I knew, but to see it in writing, it really blew my mind because I'm like, I literally have proof in my
I
hand.
think there's a lot of stuff that we didn't know. Like I think as bad as we thought this was, it's way worse than that.
Mhm.
And I think that's the part that to me, like seeing it on in black and white on court documents, it brings a whole nother element to it. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? Like even just like the stuff with Nick, there's so much um that hasn't came out. And what I think is really interesting is, and I want to refresh everyone's memory. Y'all remember it was actually this time last year that she did that apology video. Like within this was like either yesterday or the day before last year. And in that apology video, she said she felt like Nick deserved justice. She did say that.
Yeah.
Mhm. And for her to make a post that says whoever supports that POS, that comment, and then for us to see what's in the FOIA, that was mind blowing to me.
It
And I think
really.
there's so many things in, and it's so juicy with so much information that we're gonna have to break it down by document because it is too much for you all to retain. So if you're on here and you can't stay for the whole thing, we are going to repost this on our YTs.
Yep.
So you will
It's
be able to like rewatch this. Thank you, Monica. You will be able to rewatch this. But I want to preface this by saying this is going to be a lot.
yeah.
So mentally prepare yourself for it because everything you thought we discovered, it's way worse than that.
That's just the tip of the iceberg. Yep.
Yes. Like
It.
worse by far.
hmm
Hey,
And we will show
I
it
just
to
want to
you
finish
as
that.
well, so you can see
Yeah,
that it's not being made up. You know what I mean? You can see that it's the actual court document, and we'll post that and stuff like that. So,
right. Because it is. It's. I think
excuse me.
everybody went to sleep last night with.
My brain was fried. I was
Yeah.
dreaming about it. I mean, we were reading it last night, and it was just, I didn't even know. It just felt.
You know what's so funny? There's days that I get discouraged, and not because of Gypsy and her people, because I don't give a damn about the trolls, but this is such a complex story and case, right? And the media is the one who has made this complex. The media is the villain in this, and the media is the reason why Nicholas Godejohn has not gotten justice, along with the courts. But it's essentially the media that has spun the story from the very beginning, and that to me is where this all lies. And I think that this should really show us, as the public and the consumer of the media content, whatever, that there's so much information that we're told that is just not what it is.
We, as the
And
public, represent the mentality that she's a victim. This is the story. This is what this is what you're going to believe.
right,
And I think that watching that Australian 60 Minutes and seeing the reaction of the Australian people to that piece it really made me realize that here in America, when this case happened, the media threw it right at us. She was automatically a victim. And they just ran with that story because, again, it was a great story, right? And so it
right,
touched our hearts. The poor thing had to kill to save herself. And, it was a great story. And so the media jammed it down our throats. But the media didn't jam it down the throats in other countries. So now
right,
you have other countries and their media bringing it to them, and their people who were not brainwashed into believing she was a victim, their people are like, how are y'all not seeing the truth?
right, right.
And they
Which
went
is
at 60
interesting.
Minutes and was like, she is not a victim. You're trying to play the American version of the story. But that's not
Right.
what the story is, because they were not brainwashed like us Americans were with mainstream media.
Right, because when you even just think about how things are put out here to us, and especially with this situation in particular, it was put out to the public in such a way that it was already embedded in your mind that she was a victim. And what I do want to preface this by saying before we like go into this FOIA, I want you to look at this in the lens of she's not a woman, she is not petite, and she was not handicapped.
Yep.
If and look at it for truly if she was a man. If
Yes.
she was a man, how would you identify or how would you feel about this information in a FOIA? And I think that will help people digest it. And I think that will help people digest it better because earlier I was speaking to a couple of people, and one thing this particular person mentioned was that we don't view women as predators.
Yep.
So we feel as though women are safe.
Hmm.
And because we feel women are safe, when it comes to the things that some women do, especially, she has a squeaky voice. She has like, she puts on that, like
The
young
child.
voice and stuff like that.
Yep.
So, like, when you play that all in your head, you have to debunk those because those are our own biases.
Yep. Absolutely.
So, we have to put that to the side and digest it because when you read this stuff,
And when we go through this, I want you to take into account and really understand who she is being as a person, who she truly is, and how she thinks. Because when you sit there and you see the way her mind works, and you will see how her mind works, and this goes into the whole Demona. Somebody said they went down the Demona rabbit hole last night and they were completely
someone said,
shocked.
did Ivory get money? Yes.
The,
Did the check clear, Ivory?
huh?
Someone said, did Ivory get money? Did the check clear?
Oh, for what?
They're saying I paid you, so I'm saying, did the check clear?
Oh, no, not yet. I'm waiting for it. It's too big of a track for the check to clear. I was like, wait.
You know I love to bounce checks.
The comments go too fast for me. But I want you to keep in mind who this Demona person is and how she's adopted that as her
Right.
complete personality, and why there is such a concern for her baby. I really need
Right.
you to sit and pay attention to how she's thinking, the things she's saying,
Mhm.
what she means and what they mean to her, and this character that she lives through, and why there's such a concern for her baby. I want to put that out there that while I haven't seen any red flags yet that she's done anything to that baby, or
I don't think
am I
she's had a
saying
chance.
there is a concern for that baby because she's replaying that same story out again. And we'll bring that all back so you guys can see how this is just the 2.0 of the first original story.
Right.
And how she's just playing the second version of it.
So buckle
So,
up, y'all. Buckle up because it's a lot to digest. It will leave you angry.
yes.
But
And
keep
it's
in
really
mind,
hard. Yeah. In order for us to be able to make you understand our theory today, we have to go back and show you the whole story.
right.
Otherwise,
Right.
it's not going to make sense, and you're going to have bits and pieces, and then you're going to know what you know, but it's not making a complete story.
Right.
And so that's why we have to take this back right to the beginning, because you'll see it all play out, and then you'll see the concern in present day.
Right.
Where are we starting?
You know what I think we should do is start with the part about Nicholas and then go back to the front because it will have everybody look at it in the lens of he will get the same opportunities Gypsy was afforded.
Right.
Does that make sense? Because the issue was none of those things were brought up, whether in court, whether on social media, none of that was brought up. So the lens that people look at him through are through the lens of what has been portrayed by the media or Gypsy.
Yep. Yeah. So we're going to have to go right back to the beginning.
Yeah. So we're going to start with the part. Gio has my iPad, so I can't look at the FOIA right now. But
normally I would green screen it. Today, because of my Leprechaun trap, I just didn't have time to get it all up there. So I will just show you the computer screen so they can read it. And they might be able to read it a little bit better doing it like that.
okay.
So you talk and I'll find.
All right. So I will preface this by saying that Nick had a lot of trauma in his life. A lot. And it's very interesting to me because this is not something that was brought up at all, like as young as 3 and 4 years old. Um, I'm telling you, it's gut wrenching. So I'm trying to prepare you guys for this because I just, I don't feel like there's any way to prepare you for it that will probably not have you really. It's right here. The other earring is right here. I just didn't put it in. Um, I don't know, but it is a lot to digest. I found myself like upset reading it,
Mm-hmm.
really bothered by it.
Just keep in mind this is hundreds of pages we're going
Yeah,
through.
she first of all, relax. She just said she was getting it up on the computer so y'all could look at it. Like, I don't get it. People are weird. How about we just block Sarah if we not arguing nobody? Adios.
All right. Do you want to go to where the evidence
And then she also
was given?
yeah. So, well, the part where they were talking about like his childhood and like leading up to what happened.
Okay, that's the second part.
Because I feel like in order to really understand its entirety,
Mm-hmm.
that part has to be understood first,
Yeah.
right? It's kind of like and no pun intended, being in a wheelchair and nobody says that this person's in a wheelchair, but they're expecting them to do the Olympics. Like
Mm-hmm.
there needs like you need to know this information first in order to fully understand what's taking place.
Yeah.
I know it was a lot reading because
Oh my
even when I looked
goodness.
through it this morning, I was like, holy crap.
All right, I'm at the part where he was diagnosed with the autism. Is Jackie in the chat? She knows exactly what page that is.
And that's the thing, it's so many pages. So that's the thing too. And Ivory had a lot going on today, so let's give her some grace.
Yeah, I take the blame for that one. All right, let me see.
Yeah, it's a PDF. Is this the same Sarah? No, I don't think so. Okay, I'm not gonna block you. I thought it was the same profile picture. I'm like, oh hell, not you again. Hey, Ice Angel.
Look, I'm sitting here scrolling through this to find a page, and literally, I'm finding more stuff. It's wild.
Oh, I know. Like the whole thing is if anyone like Nancy Grace took the time to go through this FOIA, they would look at Gypsy totally different.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you. Because the FOIA is like, there was parts, and I'll give you like a brief synopsis of this part.
Yeah.
Basically, when Gypsy took the plea deal and Nick went to court, there was a lot of information that they withheld from the jury and the case. No, error, it's not, especially not this. Believe me, this is information that y'all have not heard, and I know that because I have not heard it. But there's a lot of information that they withheld because if they didn't withhold it, they would have been questioned as to why they gave her that plea deal.
So I'm going to start from the beginning because what we're saying is actually at the end of that, but you need the beginning stuff to, you know what I mean, to play into that. So thank you. I saw that you texted me that. Perfect. All right.
Is
So
she freezing or am I?
Am I freezing? Am I frozen? All right, here we go. Now here, oh, where'd she go? Hold on.
Oh.
You there? All right, so this is where they're talking about how they sent, there was over 100 videos that they sent between each other. All right, that she sent Nick, actually. And they go through the videos, and then they'll go on to talk about his thing. So I'll show it. Hold on. All right. You guys read that?
Sort of.
All right, so I'm going to want to read it.
Read that good. Hey, Britt.
You guys see that? All right, so we're going to start with, over the course of their almost 3-year relationship, Gypsy sent Nicholas, I'll read it to you guys. Gypsy sent Nicholas close to 100 videos, which the state provided to trial counsel in discovery. On cross-examination, the state asked if Nicholas introduced her to the idea of role play with alter egos, and Gypsy replied yes. Gypsy further testified that as part of the role play, Nick was the master and she was the slave. Now remember that. She testifies here that she's saying that she was the slave and that Nick was the master, right? The state went on to suggest through their cross-examination that on a lot of those videos, Nicholas would send her a script to instruct her on what to do in the videos. Gypsy claimed to do things in the videos that she didn't always want to do, but did them because Nicholas told her to do them. She further admitted to engaging in great fantasies with Nicholas, but claimed to not be crazy about the idea and that she was simply indulging him. Though counsel had available videos which suggested otherwise, counsel failed to establish that the testimony was false. Only a very small portion of the videos appear to be scripted by Nicholas. The grand majority are Gypsy's own creations. Some of the sexually explicit videos are formatted to look like a real movie with credits at the end. There are many in which she has with herself, using her fingers or objects, including a toothbrush, where she appears to be very much enjoying herself and not engaging in activity simply to indulge Nicholas. There are also videos in which she is a dominant character who talks about the ways she will grape Nicholas. On a 13-minute and 52-second video dated December 27, 2013, now again, Dee Dee was murdered in 2015. So this is September of 2013. Gypsy is role-playing in her Demona persona. Now this is the one that she's adopted. She explains that she is a slut with an evil streak. She can torture, she can do anything, and this is where the manipulation comes in. Except a few things. She can't physically harm Gypsy's mother or Nick because those two people are off limits. Isn't that funny that her character can murder everybody and harm them, but Demona can't, for some reason, harm her mother or Nick? Besides the two things she can't do, which is harm Dee Dee or Nick, she describes what she can do. She can steal, she can torture, she can kill. She likes to drink and be sexually naughty. She talks at great length about how skilled she is at stealing from stores. She goes on to say she overwhelms Nick sometimes and can grape him by force. She talks in detail about the ways she can do that, by tying him to a chair or a bed. She explains that she will be able to get money in the future by...
Well, note that the chair or a bed. I want you guys to note that. Okay, proceed.
She explains that she will be able to get money in the future by going to a bar and agreeing to have sex with a man for money, but instead she would drug him or hit him over the head with a bottle and just steal his wallet. She advised Nicholas that they have to play it smart and be very careful what they do as a team because it takes skill to not get caught. She closes by saying that they will be very, very good at being bad together. So hold on, let me just give my little one a hug good night and we'll continue. Good night, baby. Ooh. You have a great night and hopefully we'll catch a leprechaun, okay? Okay. All right. Another 10-minute video dated May 26, 2014 contains 2 videos. In the second video, she appeared again as Demona wearing a long red wig and lingerie. We saw that. She tells Nicholas things have changed. She is his dominant and he is her slave. Isn't that funny? Because that's not what she told everybody else. That's not the story that she told anybody. But she told Nicholas that things have changed. She is his dominant and he is her slave. She says she doesn't enjoy punishing him, but it has to be done. She describes how she will reward him with sex But if he displeases her, she has ways of punishing men. If he fails to do as she asks, she, Demona, will take away Nicholas's time with Gypsy. She threatens to punish Nicholas by refusing to allow Gypsy to talk to him for a week. Now I want you to remember that too, because that plays in part later on. She threatens to not talk to him for a week. She will command him to perform sexual acts on her, and he'll have to do it or she will be displeased. She praises him for being a good slave so far, and continues to encourage him to do a good job. And I'm going to pause there really quick, just because my little one is coming in again. Good night, baby. I love you. Get some good sleep, and hopefully we catch a leprechaun. I know. Love you. Sorry, guys. I'm probably going to have one more coming in a minute. She will continue to perform sexual acts on her, and he'll have to do it or she will be displeased. She praises him for being a good slave so far and continues to encourage him to do a good job. In yet another video dated May 27th, 2013, there is no indication of any script. Gypsy is wearing a long blonde wig and uses an object and her fingers to have it, and you guys know what it is, with herself for almost 12 minutes. 12 minutes, y'all. 12 minutes.
Sorry.
What's up?
I don't know. Okay. What do you want? Golden kisses or
anything with a gold ring?
Gold.
Yeah. So, or silver, or both. 12 minutes she was going at herself. That's y'all, that's a long time. Do you know how long 12 minutes is in the world of that?
That's some damn time. Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to try and say this as discreetly as possible because it's a little bit embarrassing, to be honest, to read this, but I will read it anyway. She is very animated and screams loudly, F my P, F it, F me, master, harder. There are many other examples of non-scripted videos in which Gypsy displays on this behavior. Now, none of this was given during the trial. In another video compilation that runs just over 19 minutes as dated January 24th, 2014, she tells Nicholas that she dreams about him, and though other men hit on her, she only wants him. She explains that he is perfect to her, and when Nicholas looks at her, it is like he sees every thought in her head and sees her emotions. They are soulmates and perfect for each other. She has it with herself in both videos using a toothbrush in one. In an 8-minute video dated August 11, 2014, Demona addresses Nicholas as her slave and informs him there are new rules and that her punishment of him will be extreme. She will cause him pain. So now remember, she said that she can't harm him. It's not that she can't harm him. She can't kill him. Demona can harm him, but Demona can't kill Dee or Nick, is what she is saying the rules are for her as Demona. That she can't do those things. Because I think at some point he questioned about her hurting him. And she can't. She's saying, I can't kill you and I can't kill my mother. Those are two things. I can kill everybody else. She will cause him pain by making him strip and by graping him with a strap-on so hard that he will scream to stop. All right, I'm blushing. She will be meaner and meaner until he submits to her. Now remember, she went and told everybody that she was he was the dominant one and she was the submissive one, but it's not the truth. She was in fact, and this is on a video in court transcripts, she was in fact the dominant one. And she will be meaner and meaner until he submits to her. She says she is a bitch and he should not dare cross her. At the end, she touches herself and tells Nicholas that is all he will get for now. Because trial counsel failed to investigate and present this evidence, the jury never heard or saw this information, which would have countered the state's theory. So again, the state never put this out. This was never seen by the jury, all of it. Everyone just went with Gypsy's story about it was all Nick who did it to me, but it's not the truth.
And
there were the videos, but they never showed it during his trial because it would have covered him.
So it's not even that they didn't know.
They knew.
Exactly. Yep. It's not even that they didn't know. They knew. They were fully aware and still decided that she was going to be the victim and he was going to be the villain. And the reason why he did not get a fair trial is because none of this information was able to be brought into the court.
So I'm going to continue with this part just because it goes on later on and it goes into some more. Trial counsel and yes, Nellie Belly just said it. Yes, it shows that he had an adequate counsel and that he had an unfair trial. And that's what they're arguing.
Well, it's not even inadequate counsel because at the end of the day, his counsel tried to bring things in and objected, and they wouldn't even allow his counsel to bring it in. Okay.
Trial counsel also had available through discovery Facebook messages between Gypsy and Nicholas from Gypsy's Demona Love Slave account. In these messages on October 26, 2014, Gypsy role plays as Demona and orders Nicholas's character, Victor, to get rid of this Facebook account for her right now. She tells him that someone messaged Gypsy's mom about this Facebook account and that the walls are closing in. 2014, so a year prior, Dee Dee knew what she was doing with her sexuality and hypersexuality and being on internet. Dee Dee knew. On direct
Of course,
examination,
we saw the shed too, though.
yeah. On direct examination, counsel asked Gypsy how many boyfriends she had prior to Nicholas, and Gypsy replied none. Had counsel investigated information readily available to them, counsel would have known that this was not true. In addition to evidence to the contrary available through witness Dan Glidewell below, Gypsy wrote on August 10, 2014, through her Demona love slave account as follows. Yes, my master, it was 2010 and 2011. I had just surfaced inside Gypsy when I started playing games with guys. I used Gypsy's fingers to make the text and take the pics. The men asked me to send them nudes, so I took my top off, took the pic and sent it. I had fun teasing them, saying I'd have sex with them, but I never went through with my words, only the text and pics. I sent them to 4 guys, but Gypsy's mom found out and threatened the men that if they ever came close to me again, she'd put them in jail because Gypsy was underage. And they were like 35 to 50. I was stupid, master. I was testing my limits of my sexuality, and I was getting male attention like I wanted. I told you I was untamed before I met you. Then you tamed me, and I've been loyal to you ever since. That was Demona to Dan. Hold on one second. Good night, baby. Okay. Hopefully we'll get a leprechaun, baby. Good night. So that was a message from her Demona love slave Facebook account to Dan. And she was being Demona, speaking in a completely different perspective, talking about Gypsy. So this has been going on even before Dan. People asked me to prove it. Well, there's the proof that she admitted it was happening with men even before Dan. I'll continue. In addition, the state adduced evidence that Nicholas threatened to kill himself on June 2nd, 2015, close in time to the date of the offense. I want you guys to remember that. June 2nd, 2015 was 8 days prior to the murder of Dee Dee. And remember, her punishment was...
Andre, stay unalived, because I don't know how
sorry.
that... They might send you the USI thing.
Remember, her punishment was... she would go weeks without talking to Nick to punish him for doing what she wanted, right? And so on June 2nd, 2015, 8 days before the unaliving of Dee Dee, he threatened to kill him. He threatened to unalive himself. And I think, and I'm just going to put this in here as what I believe, I think this shows that he was really conflicted
Not wanting to do this.
Not wanting to do it. And he was still, up to this day, trying to convince her, let's run away, let's do all of this. And so, yeah, that's how distraught this whole decision was for him. He was trying to back out. Trial counsel, unalive himself on June 2nd, 2015, close in time to the date of the offense. Trial counsel failed to present evidence that Gypsy made threats to unalive herself multiple times, as early as May 2013. Now, the counsel was saying that she tried to, but in fact it was him. This would have
and they had no evidence of that.
This would have suggested to the jury that Nicholas was not the manipulator as the state argued he was, but the manipulated who mimicked what he learned from Gypsy online. Instead, the jury never heard or saw this information. In her testimony, Gypsy claimed that it wasn't until she was 19 years old that she started to piece together that she was not actually sick. She further testified that she did not understand the extent of how healthy she was until after her arrest. Counsel failed to elicit evidence readily available that was contrary to this assertion, and that would further defense counsel's theory of the case that Nicholas was particularly vulnerable to her manipulation because of his autism. Specifically, evidence was available to counsel that when Gypsy left Missouri for Wisconsin, she took only pain medication with her and no other prescription medications. Further, in a video dated May 26, 2014, Gypsy shows Nicholas how she can stand and walk. May 26, 2014. Gypsy shows Nicholas how she can stand and walk. She explains that when she was 6, I want you guys to really listen to this part. Okay, this is extremely...
Yeah, this is pertinent, like damning evidence that she is a master manipulator and always has been since a child.
Okay, she explains that when she was 6 years old, she went into the hospital, and that during surgery, the doctor said she had a seizure and became paralyzed. They didn't know if it was only temporary. She started getting feelings and tinglings in her legs. She was young and kept it to herself. She kept it from her mom because she was afraid that her mom would stop loving her. So she kept it to herself until 2011, when she rebelled and ran away from home. She said, explaining to their friends that she could actually walk would be too hard. She said she would like for people to know the truth, but she would lose friends. She would lose a lot of friends if they knew the truth. So it wasn't Dee Dee. She actually had a seizure, which caused her legs to go numb. And then when Gypsy got the feeling back, she didn't tell Dee Dee or the doctors or anybody because she liked the attention from everybody, and she didn't want to lose friends if they knew that she lied for so long. She, not Dee Dee, she.
And this is her this is her statement.
From 6 until 2011. She kept it to herself from the age of 6 until 2011, when she rebelled and ran away from home. So, right, she was right. Someone just said she was never allowed to have friends. Well, she had them. Further, counsel failed to establish that Gypsy suggested Nicholas did not need to wear gloves at the time of the unaliving. Arguably, this suggests that she wanted him to leave prints on the knife. When first confronted by law enforcement that her mother was dead, Gypsy feigned a complete lack of knowledge about her death and stated she would slap her boyfriend if he did something stupid. She tells the officer her birthday is 1995 to make herself younger, when in fact it was 1991. She suggests that she could call her mother for a list of her medications, and tells the detective that her mother told her there was something dangerous about Nicholas and compared him to Jeffrey Dahmer. All suggestive of the fact that Gypsy planned to try and frame and implicate Nicholas and exonerate herself. Trial counsel was ineffective for unreasonably and prejudicially failing to investigate and present this evidence through Gypsy to support their theory and to contradict the state's theory of their case. Now we're getting into Dan Glidewell.
Now this is tea.
Yeah.
Because this will make a lot of sense as to why. Remember, a lot of times we have been asking, why didn't she initially buy a bus ticket to Wisconsin when Nicholas bought his ticket, right? That's always been a question, like, why did they have to wait a day to get the ticket? Why was there only one ticket? This is going to put all that to bed.
Okay. Counsel was ineffective for failing to investigate and call Daniel Glidewell. At trial, Gypsy referenced a quote-unquote friend that she attempted to run off with in 2011. Had Mr. Glidewell been called, he would testify that he met Gypsy Blanchard at VisionCon in Springfield, Missouri in early 2011. He would testify that they communicated by Facebook or cell phone. Gypsy switched her Facebook accounts and usernames often. During this time period, they engaged in sexting and sent explicit content to one another. Gypsy knew what she was doing sexually. In contemplating having intercourse together, Gypsy told him that she did not need her wheelchair and could move around like any normal girl. Gypsy sent him unclothed images of herself, including images of herself baiting herself with a toothbrush. He would testify that Dee Dee called him and told him to stay away from Gypsy, claiming she was underage, but Gypsy claimed she was 18 and had identification to prove her age. At one point, he stopped communicating with her because of the age question. Gypsy continued to contact him, pleaded with him to stay in contact with her, and continued to insist she was of age. Mr. Glidewell would testify that he sought treatment from Mercy Hospital in Springfield after he was injured in a fall from a balcony. He would testify that he invited Gypsy to come meet him because he was in pain and wanted to be comforted. Gypsy arrived without her wheelchair and with a very large suitcase. She also had with her a 3-ring binder of multiple forms of identification to prove she was over 18 years old. Mr. Glidewell would testify that his cousin, Stephen Fawcett, drove them all the way back to Mr. Fawcett's residence where Gypsy spent the night. Mr. Fawcett, Gina, and another male were all present. Dan and Gypsy made plans for their future together. He would testify that the next morning, they woke up to find Gypsy's mother, Dee Dee Blanchard, in the house. Dee Dee claimed the identifications were wrong. Gypsy was underage and told Dan to stay away. He would testify that they stayed in contact online until 2014, when he had a serious girlfriend. Even after telling her he was no longer interested, Gypsy continued for a long time to send highly provocative messages and images to try to get him to respond. Now, he would testify that they stayed in contact online until 2014. She was already talking to Nick for quite some time. What was it, a year, right? A year or two? So she was already talking to Nick this whole time.
That was like 2 years.
Still trying to get back with Dan and have a relationship with Dan. Gypsy learned that he and his girlfriend broke up and mentioned that she had a boyfriend, Nicholas GODEJOHN. Dan felt that she would try to manipulate him to come to her rescue by using Nicholas to make him jealous. Mr. Glidewell will testify that Gypsy messaged him in June of 2015. Gypsy messaged Dan in June of 2015. Now remember, Dee Dee was unalived in June 10th to be exact, 2015. Close in time to the murder, asking to meet for coffee and to say goodbye. He did not know if she wanted to have intimate relations, I'm just going to say that, or to just say goodbye, but he thought better of it and did not go. He will testify that he learned after the fact that Gypsy's mother was unalived when she asked to meet him. Counsel's failure to investigate and call Dan Glidewell as a witness at the trial resulted in prejudice to Mr. GODEJOHN. Does this one go into what I think it goes into? Okay. Allie Noble was identified as at trial as a person Nicholas communicated with via Facebook. Messages between her and Nicholas were introduced and published to the jury. Counsel was ineffective for failing to investigate and call Allie Noble to testify. Had Miss Noble been called, she would have testified regarding conversations, including conversations on social media, messaging with Nicholas and Gypsy Blanchard. Counsel's failure to investigate and call Allie as a witness resulted in prejudice. Counsel was ineffective for failing to cross-examine and to investigate and present the above evidence and witness to the jury at trial to support a theory to defend and contradict the state's theory. Nicholas was prejudiced in that the jury did not hear this evidence, and it allowed the state to argue in closing, unrebutted, that Gypsy did not manipulate Nick into killing her mother. Further, the state was able to argue that the jury, without any contrary evidence being presented by the defense, that Gypsy was the submissive sex partner of the relationship, and that Nicholas was the dominant one who was in charge, and that Nicholas's motivation to commit the crime was based on the desire to have Gypsy as a ex-slave. There was reasonable likelihood that the counsel had presented the evidence and testimony from the above witnesses, that the outcome of the trial would have been different, and that Mr. GODEJOHN would not have been convicted of murder in the first degree and armed criminal action, and sentenced to life without parole plus 25. So, yeah, that's the first part.
So one thing to note is that everything that you just read, that was not presented in court.
None of that was presented in court. They weren't even allowed to argue because the state brought up some of that, and the defense never had the chance to even rebut it because it wasn't supposed to be brought up. But then you bring it up, and now I can't go back at it. So yeah, exactly, Wax Boss.
So
not.
I think this proves even more that he's not who she tries to portray. And you know the sick part about this is, remember in the comment the other day, she said anyone that supports that POS is crazy.
Yep. Absolutely.
To you. She is projecting.
I want to
And a team of creators are working hard.
Yeah.
So just know, Gypsy, the walls are coming closing in.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a series because all the 1,000 pages we gonna go through every day.
There's another part I want to read. Just give me 2 seconds to find it because I have to skip around here. Hey guys, you guys know in the chat know who I'm talking to. Do you guys remember what page the Nick's abuse was on? There's so much more to this, Nelly Belly. But Jack or any of you guys, do you guys remember what page? See, okay, thank you. No, that's not the page.
I think it's 81.
By the parents, yeah.
I'm not 100% sure, but I believe it's 81. Because you know the truth of the matter is that I couldn't imagine having the disability that he has, along with a low IQ, mental health issues, and being patronized really by somebody.
Yeah.
I'm good, Nicole.
That wasn't the page, but I know it's coming up. That was the one about the camera that they wouldn't let into evidence.
Then not only patronized, villainized, and being called a POS for doing what you thought was saving someone else. And if you really look at this, and this is for Bree, you, Christy, and Gypsy, all of y'all that are listening right now, if Gypsy was really abused, wouldn't Nick be the savior? So why would she call him a POS?
That's what I'm saying. I don't understand how she comes off. And then you're going to sit there and come off again with this narrative that he did this to me. He manipulated me. He was the one. I was the submissive. I was doing. No. It was actually reversed, Gypsy. You were the dominant one.
I don't think we could get him another. Well, I guess it's not impossible. We would really, and it would have to be a whole internet takeover, and to a point where we're all posting about it, even if it's just one specific day, to bring awareness. Because I think that would be the best way to protest, is not even out on the street, to really protest on social media, because a lot of people really believe that Nick is the villain. Because even if you notice in that 60-minute interview, what did they say? He was arrested for baiting in McDonald's. That's not what he was arrested for. That was not. Like, they even gaslit people in 60 Minutes.
Yep.
And he was released. And it just, there's so much. And they keep trying to, like, dogpile on him to, and it's ironic that that's the first thing that she says every time someone defends. Well, let's talk about the fact that you were trying to offer up your daughter. Let's talk about the fact that you're a predator. And you wanted to grape him. Let's talk about that. That's who you are, Gypsy.
Yep. I want to read this part really quick because it goes back to the timeline of him wanting to unalive himself at, like, right before then and all of that. So I'm going to read the part about Caitlin Lee.
Oh, the ex-girlfriend, right? Before Gypsy. Okay.
So, right. So Caitlin Lee is a girlfriend that Nick had before Gypsy. And so I'm going to start this off. I just want you guys to hear this. Defense counsel called Dr. Kent Franks in their case in chief. The court granted Dr. Franks permission to testify as an expert in the area of forensic psychology. Dr. Franks testified regarding the records he reviewed in relation to the case, his examination of Nicholas, which included intellectual and psychological testing, and his diagnosis. Dr. Franks concluded that Nicholas had a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder level 2 with intellectual impairment. On cross-examination, the state asked Dr. Franks if he had reviewed all of Nicholas's Facebook messages, to which Dr. Frank responded he had not. The state then asked a long series of questions as to what Dr. Franks did not know about a former girlfriend named Caitlin Lee from those Facebook records as follows. Question. So you were talking about the number of girlfriends the defendant had. So because you haven't reviewed the defendant's Facebook messages, for example, you wouldn't know that he had a girlfriend in 2010, in 2011, named Caitlin Lee, would you? He responded, I talked to him about his past relationships and I talked to his father about them. Question. And you wouldn't know that in 2014, while the defendant was in a relationship with Gypsy Blanchard, that he tried to rekindle that relationship with Caitlin Lee, would you? Answer. I did not specifically know that or what the nature of the attempt at rekindling was. Question. And you didn't know that they also engaged in some sort of sexting relationship over Facebook during that 2014 time period, would you? Answer. I did not know that. I did not know about that. Question. Or that he used the persona Victor with her as well. Answer. I did not know that. Question. Or that he purported to be the master as well. Answer. I did not know that. Question. Or that after they cut off communication in August of 2014, again in May of 2015, he reached out to Caitlin to try to start a relationship when he perceived that Gypsy had broken up with him. So defense counsel failed to object to assuming facts not in evidence. Though Dr. Denny testified that he reviewed Facebook messages between Nicholas and Caitlin Lee, there was no evidence presented at any time during the course of the trial as to the identity of Caitlin Lee or the content of any messages. After defense counsel rested their case, the state called Dr. Denny as a state witness in rebuttal. The court granted Dr. Denny permission to testify as an expert in the area of forensic psychology and neuropsychology. Dr. Denny testified regarding the records he reviewed in relation to the case, his examination of Nicholas, which included intellectual and psychological testing, and his diagnosis. Dr. Denny testified that Nicholas was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder level 1 without intellectual impairment. The state then asked, when looking at the time before and the time of the offense, what would be important to look at to determine what the person was thinking at retrospective time. Dr. Denny responded in part, and then once I have conclusion from the past, present, and specific period of time to say, at the time of the alleged offense, once I know all of that, then I can answer the question that the court has asked me to answer. There was no objection to that, and so there couldn't have been any legitimacy to the role and his findings. So I just wanted to put that out there, that he was trying to even, like, he broke up with Gypsy right before that. And remember, his punishment when he doesn't want to listen is to go a week without speaking to her. And so he went a week without speaking to her right before Dee Dee was unalived, thought that she broke up with him because he didn't want to go through with it, tried to threaten to unalive himself, all of that right before he felt like he had no other choice. And that's what he means by he had no other choice but to do what Gypsy told him to do, because he's tried every which way out. So I just think that was like really telling right there too.
And I think that is why she has tried to stop anyone from hearing anything he's had to say, or allow, anyone to get a hold of him. Because you notice, like, they're even, what is that, the NPG? They were actually receiving his mail before him, and they would send it to him, which means they were filtering what they felt was
what he needed or deserved to be right.
Yep, they broke the law for Gypsy to be given a lighter sentence, and then they couldn't renege on that. Gio, down. It's time to go night. They reneged on that. They knew they couldn't renege on that because of the simple fact that if they did, they couldn't validate what they gave Gypsy. I think a lot of people, when you say why didn't he tell his parents, when a system is not working for you and it is working against you, and they were working against them to the point that, remember, they put out Mommy Dead and Dearest right before Nick's trial. They asked the jurors if they had seen anything on, I guess, social media, TV, movie, whatever, about this case, are they able to put that to the side and still be on the jury? Only one person recused themselves. If they had had prior knowledge, they should have not been on the jury pool. Even just that. Because if they watched Mommy Dead and Dearest, they would have already had a thought in their mind about what they thought happened. And there was objections and all sorts of stuff that I believe, if this really was to come out, I feel like there are people that would face legal action and not just lawsuits.
Yep.
Charges for what happened in that courtroom.
I'm going to be right back because I found the part where they talk about his childhood with Stephanie. And I want to go over that too, because you know what I mean? I'm just going to take a 2-second break and run to the restroom. But then, yeah, I want
more
to
than disbarred. They need to be jailed. It's a complete miscarriage of justice. It's a complete disregard for the law. Overall, I just don't understand how or what was so important about her that they had to screw him over. And that's what it is at the end of the day, because, and this is not even the worst part. That's what I'm saying. Like, we're just at the tip of the iceberg. Everything you thought you knew about this case, it's by 20 times worse. You know what I would be interested to hear from? Anyone that was on the jury. I would be interested to hear from any of the jurors. And the reason why I'd be interested to hear from any of the jurors is if they would have known this information, do they feel like they would have had a different opinion?
Right.
And I think that would be impactful. Well, see, the jurors in the Casey Anthony case, I think it's very different. And I think a lot of people are like, how could she not be found guilty? The problem is they overreached the charge. And if they would have went in for maybe a step under, they would have gotten a conviction, but it did not fit in the outlines of that law to convict her. So it was an overreach. That's at the end of the day, it was an overreach on their part, and that's the only reason why they didn't get a conviction. Now, what they could have done, I don't know about in Florida, but I know that it could be done here in Texas and in other states, um, where they can put
Thank you, Kelly.
like a like say second degree murder and manslaughter, negligent manslaughter, um, and then like when the jury um, deliberates, they're able to pick one of those charges. They did that in the Botham Jean case, so it can be done. I don't know about Florida, and I feel like had they had done that with the Casey Anthony case, we would have seen a verdict, a different verdict.
Mm-hmm.
It was just that they overreached, and as a jury, good night. As a jury, you have to follow the guidelines, and if it doesn't fit in those guidelines, even though you know they're guilty of something, they're not
You're
guilty of that
obligated. Yeah.
specifically, and you're obligated by law to. So, and she could never be charged again. She can't even be charged federally. Um, it's such a miscarriage of justice, and um, I wish there was something that could be done, but there isn't. Only lawsuits, probably, and
Yeah.
that's another reason why her cases are very hard to speak out on social media. Gypsy can because there's a dual sovereignty, and she was found guilty, so federally they could. Will they? I doubt it, but it's not impossible. Um, but Casey Anthony, that's nothing will ever be done, and that's why when people say to speak out about it, there's really nothing that can be done, and that's what it boils down to at the end of the day. And
Frustrating.
her case is a very hard case to speak on because although she is allegedly guilty,
Huh?
thank you, Queen Bee. Um, we can't say she's guilty. We can't say that she did it because she was found not guilty. So there's a lot of legalities to that it's just um, too much of a risk, to be honest. I'm sure she could be charged with perjury because that would be a separate charge.
Jamie, you're right. Not guilty doesn't mean
But
innocent.
will they? The problem is if they charge her with perjury, there's people that were in that courtroom that would have to be charged for that too. And that's the
Mm-hmm.
realty. That's the reason why they don't want her back in Missouri.
Yes.
Because if she was back, first of all, if they would open this case back up, every case that that judge has ever tried,
Would be called into
they would
question.
have to, yes,
He blatantly let her perjure herself and did not say
yes.
anything.
So it's not even, he didn't hold her accountable.
Nope. And again, I don't know. Are judges elected there?
Yeah, I mean, I would think so, yeah.
Right? And so it was an election year. They're not going to go against the DA, you know what I mean? Like, which is another elected official. So, yeah, that case was doomed the second it came into that courtroom.
hmm Yeah,
But
I
I
mean,
just,
he was going up against them. Oh, that was so cute. Thank you.
that's so cute. Look at you with the bow in your
I
hair.
know. I was like, that was so cute. I feel like he walked into a situation with the odds stacked against him, with them knowing that they were going to do everything that they could to make him the villain, when it was really the opposite. And it's a sad situation. And Bree, you could drop in the comments and let me know how you're gonna spin this. Oh, thank you.
Aw.
I would love to hear Bree explain how she's gonna spin this story because we know
We
she a
made,
DJ. So
we made these up. You wrote these, Nina. You wrote them. You made this up.
right, right.
All right,
I'm gonna say, hey, Steph.
I'm gonna start here. I'm just gonna read from here because this is a long little part, but I think this is really important because I want everybody in the chat to tell me why did she get the plea deal? Do you all know why they said that she got the plea deal? Because of why? Nobody?
The abuse.
Thank you, Tina. Because she had a history of abuse, right? She was abused.
Yeah.
So let me go on. I want you guys to remember that, and then I want to go on and read this. Dr. Wasserman will testify that hyperfocus is a unique and defining characteristic of autism that is responsible all observed autistic traits. It prevents a person from running 2 mental programs simultaneously. Nicholas takes everything you say literally because he cannot also be questioning how you use words. Similarly, an autistic person cannot also be picking up on subtleties or social cues. They cannot lie spontaneously because they would require dividing their attention between the truth and a falsehood. Dr. Wasserman will testify that hyperfocus can be so intense that any sudden interruption, such as a door opening, an unexpected question, accidentally dropping something, shatters the thought pattern and can be experienced as anywhere from annoying to devastating. Dr. Wasserman will testify that Gypsy systematically injected herself into Nicholas's world. Gypsy lavished constant attention on Nicholas over a long period of time. The constant talk of being in a loving relationship with Nicholas and referring to Nicholas as her quote-unquote charming, along with the provocative sexual video sent by Gypsy to Nicholas, resulted in Nicholas being reeled in and hooked. Dr. Wasserman will testify that Nicholas was unable to discriminate if Gypsy really loved him or was just leading him on to get him to do this for her. He will testify that Nicholas was hyper-focused on Gypsy. Dr. Wasserman will testify that Nicholas became fixated on Gypsy, and she became the main object in his life. At one point during their online relationship, Gypsy began pulling away from Nicholas, and he would ask other people what she was doing because he did not understand. Gypsy's back and forth with Nicholas was both carrot and stick, effectively saying to Nicholas, if you do not comply, I won't respond to you. Dr. Wasserman will testify that this terrified Nicholas. Nicholas had very little stability in his life, so Gypsy became the thing, and losing Gypsy would have been everything. Dr. Wasserman will testify that Nicholas became essentially a tool that was used to commit an unaliving. Nicholas's all-consuming relationship with Gypsy together with his autism resulted in Gypsy becoming the dominant in his life. Dr. Wasserman will testify that all of this contributed to Nicholas's inability to deliberate at the time of the offense. Dr. Wasserman will testify that since Nicholas is never not autistic, his ASD and his relationship with Gypsy worked together to prevent him from being able to deliberate at the time of the murder. Dr. Wasserman will testify that to a reasonable of scientific and psychological certainty, it is his opinion that at the time of the unaliving in this case, Nicholas GODEJOHN had a mental disease or defect, autism spectrum disorder, Asperger's, and was not able to deliberate. This is all the stuff that they're going to use too, but I just wanted to go back to this one part. All right, they're talking here about Nicholas GODEJOHN will rely on the following witness and evidence in support of the claim. This is his mother. Stephanie Curry Goldammer will testify that she's the mother of Nicholas GODEJOHN. She will testify that she was 20 years old when Nicholas was born and was not married to his father, Robert. She will testify that Nicholas had a traumatic and difficult birth. She will testify that she was on bed rest for a couple of months with toxemia before Nicholas was born, and that when he was born, the umbilical cord was wrapped around his neck. Suction cups were used to pull him out. He was blue and he had to be resuscitated. She will further testify that her sister, Chris Morris, took her and Robert GODEJOHN to the hospital at the time of Nicholas's birth and was in the delivery room. Mrs. Goldammer will testify that Nicholas's father, Robert GODEJOHN, was violent with her when she was pregnant and during the time that they were together, which was until Nicholas was 2 or 3 years old. She will testify that Robert continued to be abusive and violent with her even after they were no longer together, stalking her at one time and coming after her with a knife. She will testify that Nicholas saw a lot of violence while growing up. Not only was his father violent with Miss Goldammer, but several of her other boyfriends would drink and beat her up as well. Miss Goldammer will testify to one time in particular when Nicholas was 4 or 5 years old, and one boyfriend was beating on her badly. Nicholas hid in a closet, and after she was knocked to the ground, he reached out his little hand and said, "Here, Mommy, I will help you." He tried to help her in the closet. Miss Goldammer will further testify that she had other boyfriends who drank and beat on her. She will testify she lived with one in particular, Chris Bolter, for about 4 or 5 years, and that Nicholas loved Chris and became attached to him. She will testify that when he was 13 or 14, when they broke up, and it was very hard on Nicholas when it happened. Miss Goldammer will testify that Nicholas was a good kid, but had difficulties with school and interpersonal relationships because of his Asperger's. She will testify that Nicholas was not good at taking care of his personal hygiene and was not able to really cook for himself. Miss Goldammer will testify that Nicholas's cousin Amber Morris spent a lot of time with Nicholas growing up. She will testify that even though she was the same age, Amber was like Nicholas's babysitter when she and her sister Chris would go out, or when she was working late. She will also testify that Nicholas lived with her most of the time until he was in high school, and she was moving to another town. She will testify that Nicholas did not receive any outside support or services related to the autism while she lived with him, either at school or in the home. She will testify that when she moved to another town when Nicholas was 15 years old, she let Nicholas go live with his father, Robert, who was living with Nicholas's grandparents at the time in Wisconsin. She will testify that she made this decision to allow Nicholas to stay in the same school for the rest of high school. She will testify that after high school, Nicholas came back to live with her and that he was not the same. She will testify that he became interested in some strange things on the internet and spent most of his time either playing video games or on the internet. Hold on one second. She will testify that Nicholas did get a job at Little Caesars as a sign flipper. She knew the manager and helped to get him a job. When the manager changed, Nicholas no longer worked there because of issues relating to work breaks. She will testify after that her husband, Charlie, took Nicholas to apply for Social Security disability when Nicholas was 19 years old. She will testify that after Nicholas was approved for disability benefits, he continued to live with her and her husband and continued to spend most of his time in his room playing video games and on the internet. She will testify that Nicholas spent a lot of time on his computer talking with Gypsy in the 2 to 3 years prior to the offense. She will testify that it is somewhat concerning to her, but that she was unaware of the untrue nature of their relationship and that Nicholas seemed to be happy to have a girlfriend. That she and her husband continued to live in the house where Nicholas and Gypsy were arrested up to and after the date of Nicholas's trial, and never was interviewed by anyone from the public defender's office. She will further testify that if she had been contacted, that she would have given the same information to the trial attorneys that is contained in this motion. Paul Curry will testify that he's the brother to Stephanie and the paternal uncle of Nicholas. He will testify that he travels to and from different states to do construction work, but that his home base is usually Wisconsin. He will testify that when he was in the Milwaukee area, he would spend a good amount of time with Nicholas. He will testify he does not have any children of his own and like to take Nicholas out to sporting events and to visits with him at his mother's home. He will testify that he did not believe Robert GODEJOHN ever actually held a job and that Stephanie worked very hard to support Nicholas. He will testify that he noticed that Nicholas was slow in his school classes and was different. He will testify that he did not know about all of the complications from Nicholas's birth, but that something just wasn't right with him and he looked different. He always thought Nicholas was a very respectful kid. He will testify that when Nicholas was younger, Robert GODEJOHN was very violent with Stephanie. He recalls one time that Robert choked Stephanie when Stephanie was about 19 years old, before Nicholas was born. Stephanie had called Mr. Curry to help her when this happened. He will testify that he had concerns about Nicholas when he was young because he was always in his room playing video games and always in his room on the internet when he was older. He tried to take Nicholas outside to get him off the gaming. He will also testify that around the age of 14, he would catch Nicholas in his room talking to himself. He will testify that he never heard him do that before. He will testify that around this time that Stephanie broke up with Chris. He will further testify that Nick took the breakup really, really hard. He will testify that when Nicholas was in his 20s, after living with Robert for a few years, that he really got into computers, and that he was concerned by some of the websites that Nicholas was on and told him not to show those sites to his cousin, Ricky, who also had autism and had speech problems. He will testify that he recalls a particular time when he took Nicholas to his high school orientation. Stephanie had asked him to take Nicholas for her. When Nicholas walked into the school, he noticed all the kids were looking at Nicholas. He will testify that he and Nicholas rode the bus home from the orientation, that there was a group of kids on the bus who started bothering Nicholas. He stepped in and scared the kids to make him stop harassing Nicholas. He will testify that he didn't think Nicholas even realized the other kids were making fun of him until later when Nicholas thanked him for helping him out. He will testify that he remembers a time when another nephew who did not live in Wisconsin met with Nicholas on a visit and made a comment about Nicholas's head having water in it because he did not understand something the nephew was saying. Mr. Curry will also testify that the nephew who made that comment had some mental health issues of his own and is on psychiatric medication. Mr. Curry will testify that he visited Nicholas in Waukesha County Jail after he was arrested. He will testify that Nicholas was in a haze and did not seem to know what was going on. He will testify that no member of Nicholas's trial team ever contacted him prior to the trial. If someone had contacted him, he would have told them the same information that is in this motion. This goes into a lot, so I'm going to skip it here a little bit. This goes to show, I'm trying to look for the one part, that there was violence between Stephanie and Robert. He witnessed that. He got attached to the one boyfriend. After many years, he was taken from him. He was made fun of in school. And so ultimately, the point here that's trying to be made, and it goes on a whole lot. We would be hours here if I read it all. that he was, in fact, suffered from abuse, guys. He also was an abuse victim. He also was raised around, you know, all of that. Physical
He
violence.
was a real abuse victim. Like,
Yes.
I think we can all agree at this point, she was actually not abused.
Mm-hmm.
Because even with what we read today, with what she said, she was the manipulator. And she
Mm-hmm.
still is. And the issue that I feel like content creators are facing now is the fact that people hear her voice and see her small in stature, and they look at her like she is innocent, and people get confused. Now, I actually saw Not Today Satan post about the dinner at the restaurant from last week, and she said that because Gypsy had like food phobias or food whatever, um, Ken was not mindful of that, and that he was basically disregarding that. Um, and I want people to take that what happened at that restaurant and think of it in a reference of Demona with her BDSM character,
Yes.
and even the power struggle, the power switch with her and Nicholas Godejohn, and who initiated that. But what it looked like to the naked eye was it was reversed, right? And I think that even at that table, it was something similar, right? Because when you really look at it, this is a unique situation with Ken and Gypsy in terms of she is more masculine, and that goes to even show with her giving him the promise ring, right? That's moving in masculine energy. And I say that because I know that it'll be a back and forth thing about a woman proposing or a woman giving a man a ring. But really, if you understand the dynamics of moving in feminine energy and moving in masculine energy, you understand the fact that men are natural born hunters. So if they want you, they will pursue you, right? You don't have to pursue them, right? And that's what it's always been. And the way she moves is she pursues them. And it goes back to even Dan Glidewell in here, where she kept pursuing him. He was like no, and she kept going. So she pushes because she is very adamant about what she wants, right? But then she'll do all that and then sit back and play victim. And this has happened over and over again. And we're watching this play out in this very moment. What I think is very interesting when you look at this, and you take this back into context of what's happening right now, I truly, I never, I didn't think she would reoffend to the extent that someone would possibly lose their life, right? I thought she would reoffend more of like a financial crime. But now, me really understanding the Demona character in its, and I can't even say I understand it in its tough on, and understood about the character. Like
Mm-hmm.
Demona is someone that likes to unalive people, right?
Yeah.
And likes to do likes to be the dominant person, but wants the other person to be dominant. But she's really controlling, like she's the puppet master, if that makes sense. So when you look at it in terms of that, think about the relationship between her and Ken and her and Ryan. I believe Ken is more like Dan Glidewell. The problem is Ken was not smart enough to play his position and keep it moving. Now he's tied up in this situation. Ryan is more like Nicholas Godejohn, and I'm not talking about as a mental capacity, but I'm saying as in the power struggle of what she's doing, right? The dominance and the um, Ryan's the one chasing her. She's running. Ken is the one running away from her. She's the one chasing, right? So look at it in that dynamic. Someone else is going to be a victim. It is basically, when you look at this, history again repeats itself. And I feel like I can't stress it enough. And I say this when it comes to everything. In order to understand what is happening or what is going to happen, you really have to understand the context of the history of it, right? And when you look at the history of this, it just, and also if you look at it, she did this essentially she did get away with it because 8 years is getting away with it, right?
Yeah.
What would stop her? And this is the core of who she is. And if someone does not see this now, identify it, and do something about it, there will be another victim. Period. End of story. Got that. That's how serious this is right now. And I want to preface this by saying, if you watched my video earlier, I did state that she is resenting the baby because she is taking Ken away from her.
Yes.
Okay. So these are all things that you need to keep this in, make mental notes. Papas, are you okay?
I really
Okay.
want to tie in how the initial crime or the initial situation with Gypsy, Nick, and Dan.
Hold on 1 second. I just want to answer this real quick. Is Ken even interested in her? No, I don't believe that. But I also don't think Dan was interested in her. But
He
she
wasn't.
kept pursuing. And
She
because
became.
she kept pursuing, it's kind of like if a guy keeps hitting you up and keeps hitting you up and keeps hitting you up, you're like, damn, okay, maybe I should, let me just hear out what he says. Because he's becoming an addict, right? And that's essentially, she was wearing him down. And I think, and I was told by 3 people that Christy and Gypsy are trying to get Ken to go to an actual therapist, not a counselor, and a counselor to convince Ken to marry her. So he's trapped. Really, he is trapped. Like I, if he wasn't such an asshole, I would feel bad for the man. But because he's such a butt, like you can't really feel bad for him because you're like, dude, you signed up for it. But it really boils down to the fact that everybody is a pawn in her sick game. Everyone. Okay. I mean, even look at the fact of what Bree is doing. She fighting for her life in her comment section. Who voluntarily signs up to be a punching bag? Nobody in their right mind that really is in a mentally healthy space would sign up to be abused for free. Okay. Now, okay, you can whip my ass if you're giving me a Bentley, but I'm not gonna let you do it for free. And that's essentially what Bree is doing. Taking a whooping every day on this internet date. Man, they letting Bree every which way but loose, okay? Here's the thing. Because CPS is involved, I want you to think of the history of Ken, okay? Ken had some outstanding warrants for minor things like traffic violations and stuff like that. He also, I believe, at some point, correct me if I'm wrong, he was in a rehab for something to do with drugs,
Yeah.
right? Um, so yes, speeding like traffic tickets are not a huge deal, but letting them go delinquent to the point that you had a outstanding warrant shows irresponsible, being irresponsible.
Yeah.
Oh, he had a DUI. I didn't know he had a DUI. Shows that he was irresponsible, right? Now, if you can't even take care of traffic violations that you have, well, why would you trust him with a kid?
Yeah.
Considering you also had a baby with somebody that unalived their mom, so I'm already questioning how responsible you are to begin with, right? Like, I'm already asking myself, like,
Beautiful.
okay, that might have been a little bit negligent, maybe a lot of it negligent, but okay, we got it. We could kind of put that to the side a little bit. But here he comes with these outstanding. He had outstanding warrants. I don't know if he took care of them, but they were still current. The last time I looked back in June or July, I believe. Okay, so you got to think about that, and then him having been in rehab at some point. So when you look at him as a, and he's this is a first time dad as well. It's not like he has an established career, right? Now, if you think about it on the flip side, Ryan, right? Ryan is a special needs teacher. He's been working with children for years, right? He doesn't have any outstanding tickets, right? He has his own place. He takes care of himself. On paper, he looks good. That would be someone they would give custody to because on paper, he is clean, right? Ken is I mean, 30-something years old and really doesn't have a career. He's a DoorDasher or Uber driver. And not to say there's anything wrong with that, but it shows a pattern in his life where, like, okay, he was on drugs. He
Mm-hmm.
he went to rehab. He had outstanding tickets. You
Was
know, like he's
irresponsible. Yep.
moved. Yeah, and he's moved multiple times. He had a baby with an unaliver. Like you look at that all together, would you really give that man custody, sole custody? I don't think so. I'm gonna need you to. I need someone to co-sign on this custody. You know what I'm saying? You need a co-signer. It's like a car. He has bad credit.
Yep.
I'm boring, Kristen, but you're sitting in my life. So what does that make you? Oh, and Kristen looks like Mrs. Doubtfire. Isn't that interesting?
Oh, look at that.
Oh, let's blow this up a little bit so we can show the people. Right? Hold on. Let me screenshot this. All right. So we're gonna show you Mrs. Doubtfire. Wait, I kind of forgot how to do this. I haven't done this in some time. Okay. Background. Oh man, it's
Oh,
wait. Let me
geez.
fix it.
You can't see it. What is the name? Nina, you frozen? She's frozen.
No, I was trying to get the backdrop together. Yes, sir.
Huh?
It's giving 5 o'clock shadow. This is what you need to be worried about is using a shaver and getting waxed. Is what you need to be worried about instead of worrying about me. Okay. Everybody got a position to play. Play yours and just go clean that up. Okay. He's giving mustache, hard body.
That's so
When
funny.
you
Let's
try
see
to
that
come
one.
on here and check somebody and you out here looking crazy, come on, come on. Um, him and Raina together.
Oh, about who's got the kid?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, didn't it? And the fact that Gypsy is really trying to run when she has custody. Now she does have legal custody as of right now, but she does not have rights to take care of the baby, and she does not have um, physical custody at all.
The baby's last name was Anderson. It had
Yes.
to be because Ryan was technically legally the father.
So if they ever ask Ryan, was he ever a dad for 2 months, maybe for a couple of months?
Yep.
I was the pappy. Okay, I was the pappy for a couple of months. No, they're
Just a
not
couple months.
legally married right now, but their financials need to be sorted out. But the divorce itself has been signed off on, so it'll. I don't know when that is all supposed to take place, but
All right. I'm sitting here eating my munchos.
so you know
But
what's
I
so
was,
funny? Gypsy and bringing her people coming here talking about panini pressed and bitch y'all in here, so who really pressed?
the baby wasn't named Urka. The
This
baby had to
says
be,
facts. You know this is
and
brief.
that was in one of the articles.
Facts says facts on the Gypsy Rose case. Time for people to see the truth instead of gossip. Yeah, that's why we pulled out the FOIA.
Yep.
Like, yeah, we saw the facts. That is the facts. Like,
So much.
Bree, the facts say what you be trying to tell people because what you do is you speak in circles, giving no facts, no receipts, but say you're Bree with the facts. Make it make sense.
Yeah.
Legally, they are divorced, but their financials were supposed to be submit separate. I
It's
don't
just
think
it's just
any one of them signed the birth certificate because Ryan wasn't there. He legally would have to go on the birth certificate because they were within 300 days of being married,
mhm.
which is why she's Anderson.
Yeah, there's
Yes,
I was
baby.
just gonna say something, but I lost my train of thought. But
So I had to take put my headphones on because while you were reading that, I was like, I didn't want to hear I didn't want Gio to hear all that stuff that was in the.
Yeah. In the,
That was stuff
I
that
was
was
trying to
crazy.
read it. It makes you feel
Yeah.
dirty to
No,
start
but I have
reading
the
it.
headphones. I mean, I have my headphones,
Okay.
so I put them in. So because I was like, ooh, this is a bit much. And he's a little parrot, so
But I just want to break this down. I want to put this, I want to see what they think about it actually. Now you got to remember, the situation was she was obsessed with Dan. Gypsy was fixated and obsessed with Dan, right? She was with other men, but she had a
like
fixation.
someone said, yeah, I'm from Louisiana. I had to legislate my. I think she said, baby, to put his name on it through the lawyers. And okay, so it's going to be something that's going to have to be maybe not litigated, but at least, well, I guess it sort of has to be litigated to change the name.
That would be, so yeah, they would have to go through the courts to change
Oh,
the name.
legitimize. Okay. So because they aren't married, Ken and Gypsy, which is probably the reason why she wants to get married to him.
Yeah. But
And it has to go to court. Okay.
you have to remember she was fixated with Dan. She loved Dan. She wanted to be with Dan, right? We know that.
Right.
Now you got to remember, she picked up Nick not because she cared about Nick or wanted to be in a relationship with Nick, but Nick.
She wanted to use Nick. Yes.
Yeah, he. There was a purpose for Nick. All right, and so she went. She pretended. She manipulated. She acted like she loved him, and she used Nick to kill Dee Dee so she could be with Dan, right? Because I think ultimately the whole reason that she wanted Dee Dee dead was because she wanted to be with Dan, and Dee Dee was like, no, that's not safe. You know what I mean? Like, you're being too provocative online. You're being too provocative with people. You don't need to have a relationship. And she wanted to be with Dan, and Dee Dee said no. So she used Nick as a pawn. He served, his purpose, and he killed Dee Dee for her. But now it's the same thing in current day almost. It's almost playing itself out yet again because you have the equivalent of Nick is Ryan. Ryan, he needs to serve a purpose for her. He was clean. She wanted to go and be on her own and wanted to go back there. So she used Ryan and married him to get what she needed from him. Ultimately, what she needed from him was a hold off until she can get with Ken, who is the equivalent to Dan. Gypsy became obsessed with Ken. Gypsy became fixated with Ken. We all know that Ken did not want her, just like Dan didn't want her. They turned her away, they turned her down, and that wasn't okay. And so she becomes fixated and obsessed. And I think that her marrying Ryan, not only did it help her with somewhere to go after prison, and he looked good on paper as being the husband, but it also, in her mind, pulled Ken back in with Christy to get Ken back with Gypsy, which was the ultimate goal and what she ultimately wanted. So again, I feel like the same way she played out the first story with Nick and Dan and Dee Dee and all of that, she's doing it again. She's doing it again. And remember, the same thing with the baby. She wanted to pull a baby into that, and now she's pulling a baby into this one. And yes, I believe Christy was involved. I believe Christy, kept Ken around. Ken is good for Christy. And not like, in a relationship way, but it makes everything, he works better for her than Ryan, who was like, I'm going to be your husband. You're not going to tell me what to do. Ken's a little bit of a wuss and isn't going to be so, standoffish with them.
But
and
I think that's where the problem comes now.
What Gypsy wants. And she wanted Ken, and Christy made it happen because she has to keep Gypsy happy because, well, she's the source of our money right now. She's our money. She's our fame. She's our... So, what were you saying? I'm sorry.
The thing is, though, I think that's where the issue comes in now, is whereas he was good, right? But when you start throwing all of this on him, like, a baby, you want to throw in a marriage, they're asking for too much commitment to where there's a point where he has to say, this does not work for me.
Yeah.
Right? And I feel like that's where he kind of is now, which is why they're worried about him not staying in Louisiana and taking the baby elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, and look, here, at the end of the day, he was not ever living, the furthest south he was living was Georgia, which was where he was born, in Georgia, allegedly, I think. So when you think about that, then he was living in Seattle at one point and then moved to Dallas. That's nothing like Louisiana. Louisiana is the deep south. Like, he's not accustomed to that. And I think that that's a hard transition for somebody. And I didn't think he would like Louisiana, and I think I said that last year. But I do want to know.
Louisiana is an acquired taste.
Yeah, and I do want to know. I don't know if y'all remember, but after that live I had with Raina last year, I said Gypsy gonna get pregnant by Ken, and she gonna rip Raina life up with that baby. I said that multiple times, and here we are.
Mm-hmm.
I know Miss Raina got to sit there like, "God damn, that girl was right." Even though it's just like somebody said something, like I was like, "Look, y'all need to slow down," like because I mean it's very predictable when you look at it. I feel like hell, the jokes write themselves at this point.
Yeah.
You
Sorry,
know what I'm
somebody
saying?
said.
Like, because it is very much. Yeah, I personally, if I was them, I would get the hell away from Gypsy and that family, and I would
Hell
raise the
yeah.
baby elsewhere. I would move
Nothing
that.
good is gonna
I
come
would
from Gypsy.
nothing. No,
History
nothing
repeats
good is going to come out
itself.
of it.
History repeats itself. We saw
I
what
would
happened.
leave before something happens to him or that baby because I don't believe she's safe or Raina because we really don't know who would be. I would leave personally if I was him. I would leave and
Yeah.
I would be filing for full custody
Mm-hmm.
because I also think it wouldn't take much for her to lose her parental rights due to the nature of her crime. When I was reading about it in the state of Louisiana, it's almost nearly impossible, especially for someone that committed matricide, if that other parent is pursuing it because I feel like she's a danger and I don't know if it's because Ken is just as bad as her or he really doesn't believe she's that bad. I don't know which one it is. And I don't really want to speculate per se for sure. But
Listen, when
to the
you
naked eye it looks like he's just as bad as her.
when you read these court papers, okay, and you read the description of these videos, okay, and we hear what happens and how she is and who she is on these videos, to want that kind of control, that sexual gratification, to want all of that is not something that goes away overnight. Like, oh, I'm out of jail now, I'm a new person. My fantasies and what I really want are gone. You know what I mean? My ability to be, I just feel like Ken knows who she is. There's no
Do
way
you
that she's
think
not
to the
Demona.
full capacity?
Yes.
You think the full capacity of who
With the
she
full
is?
out with the outcome yet, no, but he knows who she is, and I think he knows that's a possibility.
Wow.
Like, I don't know that he
You're
knows how far
probably
to
right.
go
You're
for her
probably right.
persona, but you don't just change your appetite like that. She needs to be, you know what I mean? There needs to be gratification for her. Oh, there's another one.
Okay, hold on one second.
I really believe that who she was with Nick and Dan and everybody, obviously she was like that with Dan even before Nick. She admitted to Dan that she was like that with men before even him. She didn't change overnight and start being some sweet, innocent little. No, she's still like that. She's still Demona with Ken. Ken knows Demona. Ken may not know the name Demona, but Ken, who Gypsy shows herself to be to Ken, is Demona. She is showing her true personality. And I personally believe that her true personality is Demona. It's the only one that she can describe. It's the only one that she can relate to, tell you all about. I mean, there's a history with Demona. She knows everything about Demona. She'll give you other names, but she will not give you an entire description of a person like Demona. And she is Demona. She has become Demona. She doesn't, I don't believe, in my opinion, she has some kind of borderline personality disorder. She doesn't know who she is. She doesn't know anything about herself. And so she relates and takes on this Demona character. And I really do believe that she lives out her life being Demona. You can call her whatever you want, but she's Demona. So I really do thank you, thank you.
And her being Demona, her cosplaying everyone is part of Demona.
Yep.
So, and Demona also was willing to offer up her child.
Exactly.
But what we thought was very interesting, and Audrey said this, and I was like, She said the character is Demona, but this particular unaliving, where did the directions come from? What there had to be another case very similar. Now we looked up. ChatGPT told us one, but we can't find record of it anywhere.
Yep. Yep.
It was a very, very, almost exactly to a T case from
Yes.
the little paragraph. But we don't know if we can't find it because the girl was 15.
She was 15. She used a boyfriend who was just as vulnerable mentally and cognitively
Yeah.
as Nick to do the same thing, except it was mom and dad. But
I don't
yeah,
think her and Dan have spoken because Dan doesn't want her. He didn't want her then. He doesn't want her now. Gypsy is not a prize. Dan
but
wants
again,
nothing to do with her.
she contacted him. She contacted Dan
Even in jail. I know.
right
Because
before Nick
Rachel, her
got
best
there,
friend.
and then afterwards, after Dee Dee
Hmm.
was dead. That's
And even
wild.
in prison. And he has not answered the phone.
Nope. And you heard her in the interrogation room talking about, oh, the only numbers I have are my mom's and Dan.
Hmm.
You know, so this was all for Dan. But that one case I'm telling you about, she did it. I think this is the one I was telling you about because I found another one. She did it. She had him killed, and then the guy ended up getting arrested. But she told the guy that she did it because my mom won't let me be with you, and we want to be
Yes,
together.
to a
But it
T.
was to be with another guy, and then now this guy's in prison, and she was with the new boyfriend that she ultimately wanted to end up with anyway, and the mother actually didn't like the boyfriend, that boyfriend. And so somehow it ended up though that they both got in trouble for it eventually. But he got, I think, didn't he get the death penalty?
I thought she got the more time. And
In
that's
one
where
of
we were like, that's ironic
there
that
were two
she
different
got the
stories.
most
In one
time.
of them, yep, in one of them, she got more time and he got off because they were able to show that she manipulated him. That's the one whose boyfriend was also vulnerable like Nick. Now there was another story where she was 15 and 17, and it ended up that the girl did the same thing to be with the other boyfriend, but the boyfriend was actually put to death at 26 years old. And because she was 15,
Thank you,
all
Ben.
she got was she had to live out her life until she was 18 in a juvenile facility, and then was released at 18 years old. Meanwhile, he got the death penalty.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's just crazy.
And those are people that would, when you let someone out there like that, it's a problem because they're a predator in every sense of the way. And I also think that this is a situation where people heard her voice, saw that she was small, so she comes in there with this small, squeaky voice, and oh, he did it, and I was done so wrong, and I'm an abuse victim, and mentally in people's heads, they see, oh, she can't hurt a fly. Like you heard the lady on 60 Minutes, this is the sweetest person you will ever meet. Like, ma'am,
Hmm.
the sweetest person you will ever meet didn't unalive their mom. I can guarantee you that. Okay, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I am not a psychic, but I can confidently tell you would not be the person that unalived their mom.
Hmm. You know what? You know what
But
part
is
of
anyone petitioning? Someone said that Australians are not buying it. But is anyone reaching out
they're going
to the
for it.
media that put that out? Like, I feel like they need to correct that story.
I I don't. All I know is they're going hard. I don't know what they're doing over there, but Australia and a lot of people in the UK, they're not having it. They're not because you got to remember they were not brainwashed and had this thrown down their throats. This whole victim abuse story, they never got any of that when it happened. They never got it like we did, and so they were not initially presented with this whole poor Gypsy Rose is a victim story. So when they're getting told this story after the fact, they're like bullshit. They're calling the bullshit.
Someone said, I've got friends that
Because
work for
then
Channel 9, so I'll see what I can do. Thank you. And if you
they
need
are
anything
calling.
from us, you know what? Can you drop me an email? We've been working on some things.
They yeah,
It was a hair
they're
stuck to my face and I couldn't see it.
but you know what I found really telling that we read today? The one part that really got me was the part about, hold on one second, I'm gonna go back to it. When she was sick, she had a seizure. Now, you had called me up, remember the other night, and you were like, can you have a seizure but not have epilepsy? Do you remember asking me
Right,
that?
right,
So
yes.
you can have seizures and not necessarily have epilepsy. But it looks like when
But
she was sick,
epilepsy is seizures. So
epilepsy
that's
is
something to
chronic
highlight.
seizure
Right.
disorder, but you can have it without having been
Right.
diagnosed with the disorder of epilepsy, yes. And so you have to, and you can, a kid, first of all, a kid can have seizures for any number of reasons, especially children, high fevers, anything. Just because, like any kind of neurological issue, I had seizures when I was a kid. Nobody ever knew why, to be honest. I never had them again as an adult or as I got into my upper teen years. But seizures are a thing. And so she stated in there that she had a seizure when she was 6 and she became paralyzed. They didn't know if it was temporary. Well, because of a seizure, you can not have movement there and you can lose the movement of your arms and legs and the ability to do that. But what I find is really crazy is her admitting that after she got back, she never told anybody, including her mother. So that right there proves.
So she loved the attention. That was it. It was the attention
from her mother and from the friends for being sick. But it proves right there that Dee Dee wasn't lying about the symptoms. Gypsy was lying. Gypsy didn't tell them that she could move. Gypsy didn't tell them that she had her feeling back. Gypsy didn't tell Dee Dee. Gypsy didn't tell the doctors. Gypsy didn't tell her friends. So that's why when everyone keeps saying, Dee Dee forced the wheelchair on her. No.
The fact that Gypsy was malingering from 6, that girl a demon.
Gypsy really believed that she needed it because she wasn't telling the truth about the feeling coming back. And you hear it right there. She said that. I'm not making this shit up. That was out of her own mouth. This isn't coming from me. She said it herself.
And what's she going to say? The people told her that she had to say that?
But now after that scene, when she lost the feeling, think about all the attention she got. Think about it. She got a lot of attention. Yeah. So that part right there was really telling to me about all the abuse.
I was not thinking, that was never something I would have ever thought in a million years.
What I was going to say her say?
Someone to be that young lying like that, that's not.
Well, again, we don't know. It doesn't say how temporary it was. Was it a year, 2 years, 3 years, 6 weeks?
Oh.
We don't know how temporary it was, but however long it was, she continued it up until 2011. That is 4 years before she unalived Dee Dee. 19 years old was when she finally started telling people that she had feelings in her legs and she could walk and she could move, including Dee Dee.
I know that she could be super manipulative, but I just couldn't picture someone that young.
Well, when you're born with a psychological disorder, let me tell you something. And I mean, ask Becca. She worked in psych. She knows, because I worked in psych for a little while. Not for, definitely not as long as she did. But I will tell you that when you're sitting there in a pediatric psych unit, these kids are not children. They are not children. It's honestly, it disturbed me. I couldn't work there because when I worked there, they wanted us to take the children because nobody wanted to work with the kids. And so I don't do kids, and definitely not psych because it was that disturbing. You want to help, but I mean, it can get really disturbing. And I had children, and I was afraid of I've seen this before, and putting it on my own kids.
Yeah.
And so that's why I didn't
say
it.
Which makes sense.
But you got these kids that are out there trying to unalive people, and they look little, they look cute, they watch cartoons, but they don't think cute and little. At 4 and 5 and 6 years old, I can assure you, they don't think little. Where they even get the information from is beyond me, but they are not little mentally. It's I can't even explain it. And maybe somebody who is more can tell me why. But they look little, they act little, they'll snuggle once in a while, they'll play with cars and trucks and baby dolls and Barbies, but these kids do not think child. They think adult. It's wild. The stuff that they come up with would.
And I think that's the part I'm having a hard time with, just because when you think of a 6-year-old, I think of my child. At 6,
right?
So I think for me, it's hard to understand because it's like, well, a 6-year-old, they normally say the stuff that you're like, don't say that out in public. Like, why would you? That's not even you're not even saying what really happened. The interpretation of what's in their head. Like, they're normally very honest, And so, I don't know. Like, that's just But
you got to remember, they're born different. It's a sickness. It's an illness. Their brain is wired differently than you and me. You know what I mean? So, of course, we can't understand on that level because we've never experienced it. But they're wired differently. They're born that way. You know what I mean? I really do believe borderline personality disorder plays a role in this whole thing. Narcissism. Everyone throws around that word narcissism. We were discussing this earlier.
Yeah.
Everybody throws around the word narcissism. We hear narcissist. Oh, she's a narcissist. Oh, he's a narcissist. Oh, he's narcissistic. Narcissistic tendencies. Everybody throws around that word. And if you don't like that person, they're automatically a narcissist. Let's be real. I do it myself. Oh, you're acting like a narcissist. This one's a narcissist. We use that word so freely, but what I don't think people realize is that's a very strong word. What a narcissist
You have to really understand.
is actually very deep rooted, and the majority of the people you're calling narcissists are not actually narcissists.
Yeah, they may have tendencies, but not necessarily full-on narcissists.
That word goes absolutely deep. Okay? And by definition, you look at the definition and understand what a narcissist really is. And it screams Gypsy Rose. I'm just saying. It screams Gypsy Rose. So I'm gonna look, hold on. I want to see the definition of, someone spell narcissism for me. Because I feel like people use that word so often, but she is an actual true narcissist. You know what I mean? All right. And this is from the Mayo Clinic. We'll go with what narcissistic personality disorder is, and this definitely falls in there. It's a mental health condition in which people have an unreasonably high sense of their own self-importance. Okay? They truly believe that they are the most important thing to everybody, and it is what it is. They need and seek too much attention and want people to admire them. Okay, she needs attention. She seeks it all the time. We see that through her history and present day. And she wants people to admire them because she's a victim. She wants to be an advocate. She wants people to admire her. You survived. You're a survivor, Gypsy. Okay? That is what her narcissism looks like, okay? People with this disorder may lack the ability to understand or care about the feelings of others. Well, obviously, she uses them as pawns. She doesn't care if their hearts are broken because she married them with no intent to stay with them. She doesn't care if she unalived them. She doesn't care. She doesn't care. But behind this mask of extreme confidence, they are not sure of their self-worth and are easily upset by the slightest criticism. Think about it. You see, wait, is my volume off? Can I not hear you? Are you muted?
I'm muted. Sorry.
I saw your mouth moving, but I didn't hear
I said that sounds very familiar.
But yeah, you see it all the time. You can't say nothing to Gypsy without her. You watched it when she was talking to Ken about the internet. Okay, just people on TikTok make a comment and she has to come back because she can't handle any criticism. I'm trying to see. Hold on. I just think it's well that if you really look into it, it's her. They're selfish.
But I also think she is a sociopath.
The entitlement for me. She's definitely someone who feels entitled to everything all the time.
Oh yeah.
A lack of a need for admiration.
She thinks she's even entitled for a conversation. Like if that's another thing that I wanted to bring up to you guys is that remember there was a video I believe or a live where she had said that if they have a problem or someone needs to know something, all they have to do is reach out to me. You're a master manipulator. Why would someone reach out to you? Like what would be, I mean, what I don't understand. I don't understand how that would help someone.
I don't know.
But it's because she knows that if someone reaches out to her, she can manipulate them. And if even if you go back to the messages between her and I, you can see the manipulation all through it. So she's used to getting over on people with that.
Yeah.
And so she knows like, oh, her being sweet, even though it's a facade, she knows that she can normally get away with it. So she always banks on that. I mean, even look at her on that 60-minute interview.
Oh my goodness.
She lied through her teeth where there's actual information out there in her own words to discredit everything she said in that interview.
Guys, can I just tell you there's now a third story on what her mother's last words were? That whole story about that last little conversation that they had, there's a third story now. She done told another one. Completely different from the first two. Which I think was absolutely wild that she can't even keep track. I mean, I need you to get yourself a personal assistant so somebody can keep track of your lies for you because you obviously can't. I'm just saying. This time she walked in there in the kitchen.
How is your PR not?
I don't know. Christy, I'm going to need you to keep better track of her. I'm just saying. Just saying.
Christy said, I don't give a damn what she's doing. I just need her to get the bag, okay? So that ain't like the rest.
What's the third? Well, the first time she
ain't
said...
got nothing to do with me.
No. The first time she said that her mother's last words were, Gypsy, don't hurt me.
Don't hurt me. Mm-hmm.
Remember, she took her medicine, she was getting sleepy, she was about to go to bed, and her last words to her mother were, Gypsy, don't hurt me. Then it was, what was it? Oh, what was the second one? It was Gypsy, don't hurt me. And then it was...
Damn, I have it written down and it's in my office.
Yeah, I know, me too. Oh, she went and she gave her mother a hug, and her mom said, what's that for? I'm not dead yet. And now
yes,
she walked...
and that, I believe, was in Mommy's Dead and Dearest.
Did she say she walked to the kitchen in the interview?
Either she walked to the kitchen or she was in the kitchen, but there was something in the kitchen.
I need to go back and check. I need to go back and check to make sure she didn't say walk, but I remember her saying she went into the kitchen and told her mom, I love you. And those were the last words.
Mm-hmm.
And then she took the pillow so she can sniff it and go inside and cry and sniff the pillow, smell her mommy and cry that I have to kill you and all that. Yeah. 3 different stories on the last exchange of words and details of your mother's last words. You forgot? How do you forget that? You killed her. Not 20 minutes later. Like how she did her. So I don't know.
Right.
She said she was in a wheelchair. The pillow that was drenched in blood.
I think that's very important to know.
Yeah, she was painting her nails, all of it. So again, that's the problem though, is that she's upset because we're calling her out with her inconsistencies. But again, there shouldn't be inconsistencies with the last thing your mother said to you. That should be embedded in your brain for the rest of your life.
Right, like that should be the one thing that you would stick with.
Especially when you killed her. You knew to remember the last thing she said. You knew it was going to be the last thing she said. You're not going to forget that. I'm just saying. Hey, Uncle Dave. So
I think that is really important to note that is everything has been very inconsistent, and I can't understand for the life of me the inconsistency, because I personally would think to myself that if my story was inconsistent, at some point someone is going to figure it out. Especially when we're in the era where media has changed so much, and content creators have been, the people are trusting creators more because they're the actual truth from creators versus the media spinning the narrative that they want to spin like this. I mean, it's vastly different, right? And really, ultimately, the demise of Nicholas Godejohn was based on the media. And that's what it boils down to.
The reason that she is infamous for this story and the fact that she came out with movie deals and, book deals and all of this is to be blamed on mainstream media. They did this. They created this. Now, again, did they do it on purpose? No. They saw this story that Gypsy told, and I've been saying this from the beginning. It's a great story. It has a little bit of everything. It pulls at your heartstrings. You want to feel so bad for her. She looked pitiful. She looked the role that she was saying.
But it also doesn't make sense, right? Like, it also doesn't, when you really just
jumped the gun and they threw it out there, and then how do you take that back when you're the one who came up with the story? You put it all out there and you can't really take it back when you push it so hard.
Yeah, because it when you look at it doesn't make sense. It really just doesn't. Like, when you really just look at the facts of it, or the story that they're telling, it just doesn't make sense. Like the walking. Here, Papas. It just, here's one of the key things is, okay, she couldn't walk. Muscles are, if you don't use it, you lose it. So how would it be possible that she never walked, she never got out that wheelchair, if she was able to walk immediately when the police picked her up or in that interrogation? Why?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I don't know. It's just, when
you just look at that, it just,
none of it makes sense, which is exactly why a lot of us didn't read it. When you really...
She was an abuse victim, right? Why did she take a plea? Why would she plead guilty if she was saying she was defending herself?
Exactly. I agree.
Why?
And
Why
if that Patterson and them really believed that she was going to defend it, that she was defending herself and really believed the abuse, Then why the plea deal? Wasn't needed then.
Right. In order
She was
to take a plea deal, you took a plea deal with the assumption if you didn't, it would be worse. And Mike
Yes.
Stanfield did say that if they would have released the videos of her showing Nick how
In
to
that
do the
video with the
unaliving,
pillow?
she would have gotten life or the penalty. And he said
Yeah.
she would have gotten life
That was
or
from
the
his mouth.
penalty. And when he saw that, it was a hard pill for him to swallow.
Uh-huh. And that they knew she
So that
wasn't.
alone tells you what it is. Yeah.
Because you're right, she might have gotten even less time if she proved her abuse story and showed that she was in fear for her
If
life.
she would have proved the abuse story,
She might have gotten
I
off.
think that she could have maybe gotten off. Yeah, yeah. Or maybe manslaughter or something like that. Like, I don't think she would have gotten
Second
what
degree.
she got. No.
Mhm.
So I think that alone should be the biggest question in anybody's head. That why would an attorney tell her to take a plea deal if she was really a victim?
Because of her victim story or because she was a victim of abuse, you're right, she wouldn't. Like, just go for it.
No, you wouldn't. No attorney would tell you. An attorney would tell you go to court because a jury is not going to convict you if they feel like your mitigating circumstances are powerful enough to impact the fact that you were trying to defend yourself. That was
Mhm.
not. So just the fact that she took a plea deal should say enough
Proves
to
that
you.
that story wasn't the truth. Absolutely. I agree. I agree.
I think that should be the biggest thing that people should question. Just the fact that she took a plea deal. If you just look at that solely, and not only that, if she was really an abuse victim, why is Nick not a hero in her eyes?
That's what I'm saying. I don't understand. Why are you going to sit there and play victim to him? And if he really unalived your mother for you because you were in fear for your life, how are you saying he's a horrible person? You know what I mean? Oh, he tried to grape me.
He would be a hero. You would feel like you're in debt
With
to
a
him.
flaccid penis, he tried to grape you? Let's be real. Is that what you're saying? Because you all admitted, she admitted, he admitted, he couldn't get it up. So he raped you with a flaccid penis. That's what we're talking about here? So you don't hate him because he raped you, because what grape? And again, it doesn't have to happen with just a penis. I get it. I know that's coming. But he was not turned on.
No, but it said in there, yeah, and it also in her very own words, he said that he would not get it up.
And
In
again,
fact, the whole brownie video that she did in the hotel was to try to get him in a place that he could get it up.
Because she wanted to be able to.
But this girl wanted to have
She
sex
wanted to do it right
in
after.
the next room with her mom's court.
Because she wanted to be able to cry grape because she was setting Nick up to take the fall for it. That's why she wanted to go inside of him in that room. He couldn't get it up.
Yeah.
He couldn't go. And so then they tried to get at the hotel room. Now I have to buy a ticket and go back with him. So now I'm going to go back there and I'm going to try and get it again.
And now that is the only reason in the interrogation room when Nick said he would say sorry to everyone but Dan.
Yep. And again, he couldn't get it up with the brownies or she would have cried grape. Here, take us, you know what I mean? A scrape. They couldn't because there was nothing left in her. Because they didn't actually have sex.
Yeah. And
that ruined her entire thing. That's ruined her. I gotta blame him. I can't blame him.
Right. And I think like when you understand that aspect of it, you realize like this was definitely way deeper. And obviously there was a lot of things that they withheld. But I would venture to say, had she went on trial, I think she would have gotten a penalty. I don't even think she would have been life in prison.
Right there.
I think that would have been it.
No doubt
Because
my mind.
how outrageous that. The only thing that I would say is if it went to trial, I think obviously they would discover everything that was in that FOIA. But what I don't think they would have discovered is the meaning behind Demona.
No.
And that wouldn't have tied it into, that is a whole nother, it sheds a whole nother light on it.
Think about the whole, because again, it's in here when we get to that part of the paperwork where we read it, where she was stealing baby clothes with Nick. She had everything she needed for the baby except the baby. Demona, and Demona's child played a big part in Demona character. Okay? You have her getting out of prison, and before she even hugged her husband, she had baby clothes in the closet. First place they headed to was Walmart, and she got some baby clothes right out of prison. Like, you didn't even wait a week or so. Like, you came out of prison and bought some baby clothes.
She was like, I don't need to. For what?
Fixated on having a baby, not because she loved the man and wanted to procreate and make a life with the man that she was in love with or with at the time. It was because a baby will help her carry out the life of Demona. She needs to have a baby to be Demona because Demona had one. And y'all need to go find
Really
out.
understand how dangerous that is. Really understand, like when you truly understand the characteristics of Demona, you will really understand who she was playing, why she was playing it, and how all of this even came into play.
And I'm going to be honest with you, I wouldn't even be as concerned if her child was a boy. If Aurora was an andrew, well, not that I wouldn't be concerned, but
I would be a little concerned, but not as much.
Just because Demona had a daughter, and having a little girl, the Gypsy always made a big deal. She didn't want a boy. She wanted a girl because she is Demona, and she needed that to fulfill that portion of her being Demona. So the fact that this child was a girl is concerning. It's concerning.
But the Demona character from Demona and Gargoyle, research that in terms Demona and Gargoyle character. And even though it's on Disney, y'all are not really privy to the depth, like the story behind her. Gargoyle stands for throat.
The story that Disney, the character that Disney used for that Demona character in Gargoyles has a whole character. It has a whole life story. So you have to go research who that character is and where they got that from to understand Gypsy Rose, because Gypsy Rose identifies as Demona. Gypsy is not Gypsy, Gypsy is Demona. and
everything out of that is stemming from Demona.
Yes. Everything she does, even her issue with men and how she reacts to men and how she uses men. And I mean, we even read part of it. What was it, yesterday, the day before? That she uses men, you know what I mean? All of that. It's all.
And Demona also sold herself.
This false reality for her and how this false world for her plays into her real life. It's wild. You won't even believe it until you believe it.
No, until you read it. When you read that, it will be like an epiphany, but it's also very scary to really understand what and who she's trying to play. Like I don't know. Like to me, I think it's just very scary. It's very scary to think someone like her could.
And it's like you were sitting home. You were Demona even before, and she admitted to this. And Dan admitted to this, that she was playing Demona even before Dan. And so Demona, she's always been Demona. How the hell long were you Demona? And where the hell did you find out about Demona?
Oh, I mean, Demona was Demona. Yeah.
Yes, Demona lives in a very scary world. And unfortunately, so do we. Demona is now amongst us.
You can just Google it.
Yeah, Google. And Google. Okay, Google what a demon
Google it in terms of BDSM, role-playing, and also because the way we stumbled on, I first looked up Demona, right? Because I wanted to understand like who that character was in terms of like Gypsy's pictures, right? Like when you talk about remember that picture with her in the wig and stuff like that. So I looked up Demona just to see if there was a similarity in terms of looks. And then when I saw that there was a similarity, I was like, interesting. And I said to Ivory, I said, I wonder, like, was Demona in play of BDSM, or like where is this power struggle between her and Nick? Like, how could I really understand this aspect of it? And I said, like, let's look up like BDSM. And a lot of it switches and like explaining like where that was coming from. But then I said, well, I wonder what that has to do with, like, what's the correlation between the BDSM and Demona? And that was where I found the real tea.
And then you got to remember, Victor was a vampire. You got to look up what that character is too. Very inferior.
Demona always had someone play as someone too, though.
Victor being a vampire is very
character.
Yes. And so she knew that. It's just wild. And then you got the whole like mind fucking about the whole, and I don't mean to use that word, but that's actually a term in the whole BDSM role playing thing, I swear to God. And that whole thing about how we're going to pretend that they are actually the dominant one, and you break it to them in the middle of this role playing that never ends, that I am the dominant one and you are in fact the inferior one, and it becomes a whole, it's crazy. You have to, honestly, I would get banned, and I wouldn't blame them if I showed you. I couldn't show you. There's no way
Yeah,
that if I
they
took
have
out
to
all
be.
the words
Yeah.
and I blacked out everything, there would be 5 N's and a th that left because it's just that bad that I couldn't even show you. All I can tell you is
It is.
go down
It
that
is.
rabbit hole. And when you first Google it, that's not what you're getting. Keep going down the rabbit hole. Google what a vampire is in BDSM. Google what a demoness is. And then Demona, the character. Google it all, guys. Go down that rabbit hole. It'll blow your freaking mind. It'll blow your mind. Paradise, she had absolutely way too much access to the internet. And I feel like if somebody, I don't think that even if she had a trial, I don't know that they were ever going to link Demona
I don't
with
think
this
so.
actual character.
I
But
don't
if
think
they
so.
did, it would just, it's wild. Absolutely wild. But there's no way that they could have ever correlated that. I don't think they would have looked that far into it.
No.
So the
Well,
character
because that's
straight up
not
on
the
her.
obvious.
But, notice that Candy and Kitty and all these other ones, Rubies, are not real characters. However, Demona is. The only one that
Yeah.
she relates to. That's the one whose personality she took on because she's got psychological issues and she doesn't have a personality of her own. And she's aware of the fact that she doesn't have a personality. She has to mirror people. And she has to take on others' personalities. She, however, took on the personality of a fake character instead of another human, which is what they usually do.
Hmm. And also, something else to note is Demona, um, part of her character was branding people, which is the V for
Yes.
Didi. I mean, for Victor. In the like that was her branding. Hmm.
Yep. And I really do believe, like everyone keeps saying, well, what about the bite mark? When she was arrested, she had a bite mark on her arm. She made Nick do that because he was a vampire. So of course he bit her. She was trying to use him as a scapegoat. She was going to blame it all on him originally anyway. She made him bite her because then that's just part of her game of making it look like it was all Nick. I was bit. Look at me. No, she did that on purpose.
And ultimately, the only reason why Gypsy resents Nick is because he didn't take the fall for everything.
Yes, he told the truth. And her plan from the get-go to go with Dan backfired because Dan wasn't answering her. Dan was not answering her. He couldn't get him to come for evidence of rape, and her whole plan at the end was foiled. And so that's why she ended up in Wisconsin with him back at their house because she had to come up with another way out.
Yep.
Hence the whole, they were sitting in the closet and she was telling him what to say, what the plan was, and she admitted that also in court.
Yep. Dan really did dodge the bullet because if you really think about how bad that would have been
If he would have
for
picked up
Dan,
that telephone and showed up, this whole story would have had a
he would
different
have.
outcome.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna get off here because Gio needs to. I need to get him, you know, some
Settled in.
more juice and settled. I know he's not gonna go to daycare tomorrow because he's still coughing, so I don't want to take him to daycare. But so I'm gonna get off, get him settled in, and then I will message you.
Yep, we will
Bye,
continue
everyone. Thanks for joining. We'll be
tomorrow.
back tomorrow, and we will read more and then break down. So every day we're gonna like break down more of the FOIA.
Yep. And
So
correlate it with
this is
everything
gonna
that's
be
going
fun
on.
to like deep dive into because I think that this gives a whole nother level of understanding where I don't feel like I think we thought we understood, but this FOIA really I feel like brought another
When you
depth to
see things, like
understanding.
you said, that we didn't even know, it's just eye-opening like crazy. So, yeah,
Yeah,
we will
because
be back
I didn't
tomorrow.
think it could be worse.
No,
I
me neither.
personally like I thought anything in that FOIA was stuff we already knew.
Yep.
I don't know,
Nope.
like
There.
in my mind, everything in that FOIA we already knew.
Mm-hmm.
But to read those things, it really I was like, this is much worse.
Shocking.
And how could it possibly be worse? But yet she's
Just
out
when you think
here.
she can't shock you anymore, you read this and you're shocked. Yeah.
It's eye
Yep.
opening, and it really just lets you know, like I'm saying someone else is at risk, and history repeats itself, and I feel like it's almost inevitable unless someone catches it, and I think that's kind of where creators really have to shed light on it because look, I don't like Ken, right? But I also don't want anything to like for him to lose his life or anything like that. I don't
Yep.
think anyone deserves that, and I think like when you're going down a road like this, like you're cruising for a bruising.
Yep. Absolutely. I completely
But all
agree. But
right,
yes,
y'all.
we will
Bye.
continue this tomorrow. Guys, thank you all for the gifts. I really appreciate them. Thank you for
Yes,
showing up
thank
and
you
being
for the
so
gifts,
comments.
everyone. We appreciate them. You have a great night. everybody.
You too.
Bye, y'all.
Guys, we will be back on tomorrow at 9. Actually, we're going to. Are we still going to stream the show and then we'll talk about this afterwards?